Christian Horner talked about what will happen with Max in the Red Bull team, even though he got fired from the Austrian team recently. It looks like the four-time world champion isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Even though people have been talking for months about him maybe going to Mercedes, Horner thinks differently. But the British guy left the door open for Max to make a big move in 2027. So with this in mind, could we see Verstappen try out the new rules and decide that Red Bull isn't the right team for him anymore? And if that happens, is Mercedes the only top team that wants to sign him? The situation between Max Verstappen and Red Bull has been really bumpy over the past few months. It all started when the team's technical stuff went downhill, which ended with Horner getting fired from Red Bull. But now things have gotten so bad that people are asking questions about Max's future. Even though Christian isn't part of the team anymore, he helped win 8 driver championships and 6 team championships. And he got to share his thoughts about Max's future at Red Bull for 2026, according to Christian. All the rumors are just rumors. And in 2026, we're not going to see any changes in the Austrian team's drivers. But of course, he can't promise anything for 2027 because Red Bull and every other team will start with big question marks about how fast their cars will be. Adding to this, Horner said that in 2026, Max is staying right where he is. He's going to have lots of choices. It won't be just with one team, and I think it's more about 2027 than maybe about 2026. And I think we don't need to talk about which teams want to sign Max the most. The first one is definitely Mercedes, with all the things that Wolff and Russell have said showing that Verstappen could very well stop working with Red Bull and finally focus on a team that's getting better. The second one is Aston Martin, a team that has almost all the winning parts that Red Bull had when they were the best at the start of the current time period. The choice will be hard if Max decides that Red Bull doesn't fit his skills or story anymore. But making that choice before seeing what the new rules will bring is an even harder job for the Dutch driver. Yes, people generally believe that Mercedes should be in front because their engines are so good. And I don't think you could blame us for believing that. Not only that, but Ola Kalinius, the CEO of Mercedes, gave the okay to the board of directors to go after Verstappen's signature, something that was thought to be a big problem when the chance came up in the first place. But there are teams like Ferrari and Aston Martin who aren't going to give up easily either. Lawrence Stroll knows better than anyone else that having a driver as good as Verstappen on your team is worth spending billions of dollars if needed. But the question is whether the project that he prepared for so long is going to make Max think about moving to Alonso's seat. The family favoritism in the Silverstone-based team makes it very hard to believe that Lawrence would just get rid of his son to have 2 proven world champions driving together. Alonso is in the final years of his career and will probably become an ambassador for Aston Martin after 2026, so it makes sense for Lawrence to hire the best driver available for that seat. Still, the promise they made to both Lance and Alonso for 2026 doesn't leave any room for guessing that Max is going to be there next year. But we're talking about 2027. Let's not forget that 1 year in the newly ruled era could change everything. Red Bull are said to be a bit behind with their new engine despite all the smart stuff they got from Honda from when they worked together before, but that doesn't automatically mean they're going to be a middle or back-of-the-pack team. The only way I can promise this is if Max isn't on the team anymore. And that could be the main reason why Horner got fired right away. Red Bull wants to show even more that they're committed to Max and their future together, which is now signed until the end of 2028. All signs point to him respecting and finishing the deal. The comments from Marco and the constant mention of the famous exit clause are making US think that something earlier is going to happen and the whole market is going to be shaken up. For that reason, Max would be smart to wait through 2026 and see what the new rules are going to look like and maybe even change his focus. Let's not forget that nobody saw Mercedes mess up so badly in 2022. With the ground effect era, even though they picked up the broken pieces year by year. So what could happen if Max joined another team? There have been reports about Antonelli taking a temporary seat at Alpine so that Russell and Verstappen would be able to race in the same cars. But that was mainly if something happened for 2026. Right now, it seems like both Mercedes and Red Bull are going to look at all their choices in the following year and see which driver doesn't deserve to be part of their team. Especially Mercedes. Red Bull have seemingly thrown down the challenge to Max and promised complete loyalty to the Dutch driver, with reports saying they're ready to even make him a main sponsor for either Red Bull or RB. So it's easy to understand that they aren't going to give up easily, because without him, they're easily going to be at the back of the grid fighting for tiny points, and the comments from Horner are pretty reasonable ones. Yes, he's not the team boss of Red Bull anymore, but he's still an employee of the team. He's been there from day one when they took over from Jaguar, and you'd think he knows a thing or two when it comes to Max's future with the team, strangely enough. He could be the reason why Max's time at Red Bull gets questioned so often. But at the end of the day, I don't think anything can be done about this. Questions will be asked all the time, and every time Max doesn't do well with the RB21 because of the technical problems with the car, Mercedes and Wolff will show up in the news. From past history, it's easy to understand that Mercedes has the best chance to be the best in the newly ruled era. But they will have very close competition from Ferrari and Aston Martin. It's not just the engine. We all know that. Even with less downforce and no DRS, adding active aerodynamics will make a big difference between a really competitive car and a really slow car. Mercedes isn't very well known for making their cars aerodynamically good, at least not as good as Red Bull with Newey, which is why Aston Martin could become a possible choice for Max after 2026. And that could be the main reason why Horner said there isn't just one team that would want to sign the four-time world champion once 2026 is over. Besides Newey, who is the technical partner of Aston Martin, there are other important people like Fallows and Cardile who are doing all the dream work behind closed doors. Lawrence will definitely try to get Verstappen after 2026, but whether it would work the same way it worked with Newey, only time will tell. Honda will be a big factor here too. So from this point of view, I guess we'd have to wait and see what's going to happen with Max and Red Bull. The current situation is going from bad to worse. Not only are they falling fast, but the technical development by Watch and Balbo just isn't showing any promise. The manager of Verstappen, Vermeulen, shared the common goal that he and Verstappen have of looking for performance. He didn't say with which team, although it's easy to understand that's probably Red Bull, but there's a hidden message here that the Austrian team needs to see as a serious threat. If they don't show the performance needed, then they're losing Verstappen, but if you asked Martin Brundle, he'd have a very different opinion. Horner leaving means that Joes and Max are going to stay with the team, and the four-time world champion is going to see how the new engines are going to work. Explaining this more, Brundle said, "It maybe makes it more likely that the Verstappens, Joes and Max will stay with Red Bull. I think it became quite personal. Every point, podium, and win Max has through his own amazing driving is in a Red Bull car. He's often said he wants to finish his career at Red Bull if he can. They are starting their own engine for the first time next year in what will be the biggest change in F1 history of car and power unit at the same time. And that's exactly why Max might ask questions that would be very uncomfortable to answer. Every top team caught up to them. And if you believe that Max will stay in a middle team trying to bring it to the top in the next 5 years, then you're really wrong. So with all this in mind, do you think Max is going to leave Red Bull from 2027 onwards? And if so, which team do you think will have the biggest chance of signing him? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And once you've done that, have a look at the video that's appearing on your screen right now.